मोबाइल रखना नीचे।
अरे अभी
मोबाइल मोबाइल
चेयर पे चेयर पे
कौन सा बुक आप ये थैंक यू।
Chase people, chase skirts, look after girls, but this man is writing books after books. I am really envious of him. His first book was a
correction 6. How could you go wrong with that?
Thank you. The book is about him, where he is discovering his own self, where he is discovering the vast.
Sorry, 6 now. Yeah, 6 now. At that time you were 4. That how he was hand holding his parents, helping his parents, and now he's 6. To learn the deeper meanings of life, and how Imran himself had so many places said that he gathered so much from his own child, the way he was maturing, the way he was handling first the very difficult traumatic surgery, and then after that chemotherapy, sessions of chemotherapy, and how he was losing his hair. But the way he handled everything so bravely and so courageously is something that we all should take a leaf from and learn in life. In fact, the last chapter of the book is so fascinating that I've read it thrice so far, and every time I read it I feel like crying. 3.5-year-old who has gone through so much in life, and still he wants to participate in a race against the wishes of his father. Imran has been a hero. You have seen him beating up so many baddies in the movies, and you have seen him as a brave man in the movies. But even he could not face that how his young son decided to take part in the race, and he ran throughout, despite he falling at least thrice in that race.
First of all, thank you everyone for coming here this evening. Thank you so much. I want to start by thanking a few people. Without them, this book wouldn't have been possible. First of all, Mr. Hussain Zaidi, the man who relentlessly pushed me week after week, month after month, after I came back from Canada where he was being treated. And I remember what Hussain told me. He said that, you've been through this as parents, this information that you've had, that you've got on your side. If one family, one parent, if one child fighting cancer can have this information on his or her side, it will be battle won for all of them and for you. And also Bilal, my partner in crime, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. He really pushed me dig down into those painful memories back in 2014 in January and document them in this book. So thank you, Bilal. And also Millie, the entire team at Penguin, it wouldn't have been possible without them. They've really given the book the kind of exposure that it needed to get across to everyone in the hour of need. And also, I think next month there will be a Hindi version and a Marathi version that will be launched. So looking forward to that. So let me just take you back through the incident 2 years back and tell you exactly how the book eventually happened. It was January the 13th, 2014, when as a family our life was completely wrecked. It was a casual brunch that me, my wife and my son had gone for to Taj Lands End, and it was there where we detected some abnormal symptoms in our son, and we rushed him to the hospital. There was his head pediatrician there, and tests began. There was a conversation that we had 2 weeks back. We didn't want, we were delaying a simple blood test for the hemoglobin because we didn't want our child to go through physical trauma when a needle went into his arm. And here in this hospital, there was needle after needle jabbed into his arm, and doctors trying to get to the bottom of the problem. Anyways, that nightmarish of a day ended. We went back home, and I went onto the internet to do my own research, and I typed out his symptoms, and what I was confronted with on one website really tore my heart apart. It said the dreaded C word, and below that there were a list of other diseases. And I remember going to sleep that night. Before that, I prayed to God and I said that please don't let this be cancer, please don't let this be cancer. But next day, our worst fears manifested. His chest X-ray and his blood tests were normal. But in his sonography, there was a tumor the size of a seasoned ball that was growing on top of his left kidney. And I remember seeing it on the sonography machine, this dark grey haze. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's a Wilms tumor. It's a very rare case of kidney cancer that happens to a minuscule percentage of kids. Of all pediatric cancers, roughly around 2 to 3%, and he happened to be part of that unfortunate percentage of kids. If you've had someone close to you being diagnosed with this disease, you know what the next couple of weeks, months, and possibly years are like. You're hearing things like staging, pathology, chemotherapy, remission, radiation, and it was very frightening for us back then because we didn't know the staging of the cancer. And even these cancers are divided into two subgroups, which is favorable and unfavorable. God forbid a child has unfavorable, the chemotherapy does not work. But God was, I guess, very kind. In the next week after the surgery, we realized it was a favorable cancer. And we as parents and family, we fought hard for 7 months. We took him to Toronto for his treatment, chemotherapy. And through this entire phase, and this is how the book actually started, somewhere it started seeding in my mind, that there was this fear in me, and there's a fear that in most of cancer patients and parents, a fear that when the chemotherapy is being administered, you feel the job is being done and something is fighting the disease. But what happens once that stops? Doctors and oncologists didn't give me the right answer. They didn't give me the answer I wanted to hear. They told me that, take the chemotherapy, fingers crossed it won't come back. Because there is recurrence in cancer, there is a 5-year survival rate. So I started doing my own research, and turned out some great information which was going to help us out was that roughly 90% of cancers were lifestyle related, and a small percentage of cancers were genetic, which means that we could have fought this, we can fight it. And there are a lot of things that come into play. There is, obviously, lifestyle is what, when you come to cancer, when you come to terms with why cancer happens. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, the stress levels, all of this contributes to an abnormality in the body. And we put Ayan on a very, very good diet. He's probably the only 6-year-old who has a vegetable smoothie. I can't have it. So he really, I guess, worked his way himself to cure himself of this disease. And, it's statistically they say that roughly by 2030 there will be 4 in 5 people who will have cancer. And that's a very alarming rate for our country. That means probably everyone in this room at some point of a time with our given diets and lifestyle are candidates to get this disease. So I felt once Hussain came to me and Bilal came to me and they said that, you have to get this information out to people. And if it touches one life and gets the information to them, it will be a great accomplishment. And this is not just for cancer patients. This is for people for prevention. Because even we as a family felt that this could never happen to us. Cancer is something that happens to someone else. But I have news for you. It comes knocking on your door without a warning. And sometimes it gets very late. So I would advise everyone to go out and read this book. We have put the last 3 chapters, which are about what you can eat and what you can avoid to reduce your probability of getting this disease. Something that oncologists will not tell you. I have nothing against them. They have saved my son's life because chemotherapy was given to him. But the fact is that food does not come into their domain. It cannot be patented.
So, are there more such stories which you have not disclosed in this book and just kept to yourself, which you will reveal some other time?
Hussain, this takes me back to a discussion we had in my van a month back, where I thought you were joking, but you were actually serious. He said that Hussain actually came up and said, Imran, this book is doing so well. I'm greedy. I want to tell you to write another book. I was like, I have no experience to share right now. I just shared this the biggest experience of my life. And now Hussain will tell you first the title of the book that he wanted me to write now. Please tell them the title of the book.
Let's keep it secret, Imran. We'll do it when we do it.
It's about this. At least tell them what it's about.
Okay, you tell. You go ahead and do this.
I think that's the title, no? Title, bata do. romantic I am. I might act as a smooth guy on screen, but if you ask my wife, what I hope.
Yeah, he proposed his wife in a lift saying, can we, marry? Something of that
By
sort.
the way, and
Yeah, by the way.
I got rejected like 3 times. So that's the love guru for you. I think I'd make a disastrous book.
But
I don't think I
no, but imagine
Get
if
down to
he, despite being such a hopeless romantic, is known as serial kisser everywhere, and those movies where he has not kissed has been a miserable flop. For example, Shanghai. What other movies were there?
Thankfully, some films where I have not kissed also have flopped. So, which I've kissed also have flopped.
Okay.
So, there's the equation got balanced over there.
And I'm not writing that book, sir.
That's okay. Imran will write alone this time, I guess. But well, I thought he could be successful love guru if he wants to write that book.
I think about it.
Yeah.
I think I'll actually give it a thought.
So guys, there's any question now?
The father. And also, I will probably never be able to understand what he went through because it is a complex. I mean, there's not one particular emotion you're hit with when you hear something like that. It's what I pretty much had to rely on was the censor and his Imran sir's accounting of what happened, and from there I had to actually get into his head, and luckily he narrated the incident to me as many times as was needed until I got it just right. And even if I did falter at times, he did rewrite that portion. And as a person, it has certainly changed me a lot, the way I look at life now, the way I learn to take the small things. I mean, I learned not to take the small things for granted. The way I don't know, my food habits haven't changed much. I still have 5 Cokes, I have 2 now.
Unless I'm on the table and I keep taunting him.
Then I have 1. And so, yes, it was a complex book to write, and I know this is just my 2nd book, and even if I write 10 more, none of them will be as special as this one was. So, in that sense, yes, it was quite a journey, and I'm grateful it happened. Thank you.
ये इसकी वजह हुसैन सर हैं, क्योंकि जब हम इस किताब का टाइटल ढूंढ रहे थे तो बहुत सारे टाइटल के ऑप्शंस मैंने दिए. जनरली बिलाल इन टाइटल्स ऑप्शन से सहमत रहते थे, लेकिन हुसैन सर कहते थे कि नहीं, कुछ जम नहीं रहा है, वो मज़ा नहीं आ रहा है. और ही टू टेल मी दैट ये कभी कभी आ जाता है थॉट प्रोसेस. आप एयरप्लेन में बैठे हैं, आप कहीं जा रहे हैं और आपको सोचने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती है, बस टाइटल आ जाता है. So I think that day I don't cook normally. I was cooking an omelette at home, and I had given him so many title options, which he said no for. And suddenly this thing came to my mind, Kiss of Life. तो मैंने बिलाल को फ़ोन किया, मैंने बोला कि मिली को फ़ोन करके बोल देना कि एक टाइटल मैंने ढूंढ लिया, Kiss of Life. She's not going to say no to this. I know that. So Bilal called her up. In 2 minutes he called me back and said he was laughing on the phone. He said that they've got a very marketable title, Kiss of Life. So that's how the title came about. And of course the tagline is something we thought about earlier. The earlier titles that I had given were things like Don the Cape, Superhero Kids. Lekin I get Hussein's point कि it was not a personal thing. और इसमें कुछ अगर आप मेरी फिल्मों का ये निकाल दो इससे reference, so it is life affirming, Kiss of Life. There's certain optimism in that. Forget about all my films. Get that visual out of your head. So that's what I guess Kiss of Life brings forth.